In this video, I will be doing a flip through of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People personal workbook. This video was requested by you in the comments. If you did not know, you can purchase a workbook as a companion to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. This book, written by Stephen R. Covey, is an international bestseller on self-improvement. You can get the book in paper form. You can get it in hardback cover and softback cover, and you can get an audio version if you're on the run and you just want to listen to the book. And you can get the book in an electronic form so you can read it on your Kindle, your Nook, or your tablet. I will list links to all of these items and a discount promo code underneath this video for you. As a companion to the 7 Habits book, this workbook allows you the opportunity to do 5 things. Number 1, this workbook allows you the opportunity to make notes. Number 2, this workbook allows you the opportunity to record your thoughts. Number 3, this workbook allows you to score yourself on self-assessments. Number 4, this workbook allows you to answer questions that are designed to provoke thought. And number 5, this workbook encourages you to have deeper insights into the reading material in the book. In this video, I want to show you a sample of what the workbook has to offer. In the workbook, the table of contents is the same as the table of contents in the book. So in the workbook and in the book, the table of contents are divided into 4 parts, and under those 4 parts, it talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people. Real quick, let's go over what are the 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit number 1 is to be proactive. Habit number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3 is to put first things first. Habit number 4 is to think win-win. Habit number 5 is to seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6 is to synergize, and habit number 7 is to sharpen the saw. So let's take a look at section 1 in the workbook so I can show you an example of what to expect from the workbook. Now, at the beginning of each section, it recommends that you read or reread a section of the book before completing the assignments. Here in part 1, it recommends that you read pages 15 through 62 in the book before completing this section of the workbook. So because of that, because it refers to specific pages in the book, I think the workbook works best with people who buy the book. Now, if you have the audio tape of the book, or if you have an electronic version of the book like on your Kindle or something like that, then you will have to try to match up the sections of that media to the book. But this book works directly with the written copy of the book. The first section of the book, it talks about paradigms. Question number 1 is, have you ever had an experience where you made an assumption only to find that you jumped to a conclusion too quickly? Describe the experience below. Now, I started answering these questions, but because I knew I would be showing this book on camera, I didn't want to have my personal answers here in a book, so I wrote the answers in a separate notebook. Here's the next question that it asks. What was the assumption that you made? Think about some other assumptions you may have made. What will you do this week to work on one of them? And then it talks about examining your paradigm. So this section talks about your assumptions. Don't take that lightly. You may look at these questions and say, oh wow, that's so simple, I don't even know if I need to even deal with that. No, think about it for a moment. If you think about the word assumptions, this book is so relevant to today, guys, because, and my husband said I shouldn't talk about this on camera, but I'm going to say something about it, and I hope I don't offend anyone. Assumptions are so important. It is so important to be able to check yourself and understand when you are making an assumption, especially if you are in a position of management where you are managing other people or what you do affects other people. Wars have been started over incorrect assumptions. People have lost lives over this thing. So is it not important to examine and take a look at your assumptions and what make you assume what you assume? What experiences in your life have made you draw conclusions about someone else? And so that's all I'm saying, is that assumptions can be the root of what a lot of injustices are in this world. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So let's get back to the workbook. This next section of the workbook talks about examining your paradigms, examining how you see things and why you see the things the way you do. And it talks about, have you ever been to a different country or even to a different region in your country? What was strange to you? Did people act the way you expected them to? This is dealing with your expectations of people, your assumptions. What did you think about their actions? Looking back on your travel experiences now, what do you think people thought about you? And do you believe their thoughts about you were probably similar to your thoughts about them? So these are examples of the type of questions. Here's a section about shifting your paradigm and thinking about how you can try new things to shift how you assume things about people. Okay, the next section of the workbook is called Principles, and it starts out with a quote here, and there is a story, and here is a section where you can write your notes on what you think about that. And here it talks about the 7 habits. The 7 habits center on timeless and universal principles of personal, interpersonal, managerial, and organizational effectiveness. Listed here are the principles upon which the habits are based. So these are some things to think about as you're going through the workbook. Now this workbook and the 7 habits of highly effective people is not just for people that are in the workforce. This could be applicable to you just as a mother. Because as a mother, you influence people, you influence your children. Even if your children are grown, many times your children will call you sometimes for advice or just wanting someone to listen to. You are influential to the people you are around. So let's go to the next section where this talks about the 7 habits and overview. And I like this because this is a nice chart to pretty much summarize the 7 habits. And for example, this is a chart. On this side, it says effective people. So this is what effective people do. For example, effective people are proactive. Now on this side of the chart, it talks about ineffective people. This is what ineffective people do. Ineffective people are reactive. This next section is a self-scoring section. You're scoring yourself on the 7 habits. So this assessment will help you know where you are in living the 7 habits and give you an idea of some of the areas you want to focus on as you progress through the book. So here you take an assessment of yourself. For example, I show kindness and consideration toward others, and you are to rate yourself on that. This next section talks about charting your 7 habits effectiveness, and here is a chart where you can do that. And I'm going to start going a little more quickly through the books because I don't want to lose people because I'm taking too long. And here is a diagram about effective habits, and it talks about what a habit is. And then here is a section where you can keep a record of your progress on habits. And here is a diagram. This diagram is also, I remember seeing it in the book where it talks about the 7 habits, but this is called the maturity continuum, and it talks about that where you can write in. And now we're getting into part 2. This section in part 2 talks about private victory, and this is the section where it talks about dealing with yourself, dealing with things that only you can control. Like being proactive, that's something that you can control. So just flipping through here on the private victory section, this talks about circle of influence, so circle of concern. This talks about courage. This talks about habit 2, beginning with the ending in mind. Here is a story that it begins with, and here is a section where again you can write in your answers. Do I feel fulfilled? Oh my gosh, if you're looking to feel more self-fulfilled, this can help you achieve that. Now, it takes work now. It's not a matter of just reading the book, putting it down, and never revisiting it again. These talk about personal mission statement examples, and you have a list there. Okay, now it talks about putting first things first. Here it's talking about the time management matrix. It's talking about values here, what you're passionate about. It talks about roles. This section is talking about priorities. This section is talking about trust. And it's talking about here an emotional bank account valuation, think win-win. This section is talking about developing a win-win paradigm, key points in developing win-win relationships. This is a win-win agreement checklist. The next section is about habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. This talks about your listening skills and about remaining silent while you're listening. A listening exercise, listening skills, how to develop a listening awareness, communicating effective messages, evaluating your communication. Habit 6, this section talks about synergizing, and it's basically saying here one way is not the only way. Valuing other people's differences. It talks about that in this section. This section talks about getting over it, your blocks to synergy. And habit 7 is talking about sharpening the saw. A physical checklist here, a mental checklist, a spiritual checklist, a social and emotional checklist. This talks about what inspires you, what can you do less of, and what can you do more of. And part 4, it talks about so what now. So this talks about creating or implementing a renewal plan, what to do when you're ready to lose your mind. Oh my gosh. This talks about your own little sanctuary, 5 steps to inner renewal. And then here is the conclusion to the workbook. Oh, and there's a picture of Dr. Stephen Covey right there. So I hope you found this video helpful and gave you hopefully a quick overview of what you can expect from the personal workbook. Please let me know in the comments what self-improvement books that have been most influential to you. Please be sure to like this video. This is Tonya helping you feel more organized so this can be your best year yet. Take care.